Single mom discouraged by 500 medicine costs until a CEO revealed an incredible secret. Jessica's heart raced as she gripped the crumpled invitation to the annual spring fundraiser in Maplewood. The glittering balloons and fresh flowers swirled in her vision, contrasting sharply with her reality. Just that morning, the pharmacist had handed her the harsh news: $500 every month for Ethan's medication. $500 she simply didn't have. She could feel the walls closing in, each bill stacking higher, echoing her fears louder than the laughter she would soon be walking into. What if she faced a crowd of people who would never understand? Walking into the town hall felt like diving into cold water. Everyone was dressed to the nines, mingling over hors d'oeuvres and sharing stories of tropical vacations and new cars. Jessica ached to belong, yet she felt invisible, just another single mom from the diner, unnoticed and uninvited to their world. The hope for a better tomorrow for Ethan tugged at her heartstrings, but the shadows of despair flitted at the edges of her mind. Then she saw him. Marcus Reed, the CEO of a pharmaceutical giant, his tailored suit polished brighter than her dreams. Their eyes met, and Jessica's mind raced. Could he understand? Could he help? He stepped toward her, exuding an aura that made her stomach twist. They exchanged pleasantries, but beneath her guarded demeanor, desperation bubbled quietly. "Did you hear about our new patient assistance programs?" he asked, as if sensing her inner turmoil. Those words fell like gentle rain on parched soil. An incredible secret, one she didn't know existed. Hope flickered inside her, battling the fatigue that had worn her down like a scrubbed surface. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. But with Marcus' revelation came confusion. How could she ask for help when pride screamed louder than desperation? She envisioned Ethan's face, his innocent smile overshadowed by the threat of illness. Her heart clenched painfully as shame mingled with a flicker of hope. Slowly, that hope began to build something stronger inside her, a fierce resolve. Maybe she was meant to be a voice, not just for herself but for others just like her. That night, sleep eluded Jessica. She envisioned gathering stories from other families, those hidden struggles in Maplewood that everyone pretended didn't exist. She could feel the weight lift slightly as she imagined an army of voices united, demanding change. Together with friends from the diner, she walked into the community center, armed with tales of struggle and strength. Standing before a crowd, her voice trembled but surged with power, echoing through the room. What if she could ignite a movement that shifted the tides of injustice? A wave of nervous excitement rushed through her. As she prepared to address her neighbors, a haunting thought loomed. Could her call for change spark the community's courage, or would their fears drown her hope? The stakes were high, and as she opened her mouth, the world held its breath. Jessica took a deep breath, her heart pounding like a drum. As people settled into their seats, all she could feel was the weight of every expectation, every gaze, lingering on her. She was just a single mom, right? What was she doing standing there? "Thank you all for coming tonight," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. The crowd shifted, caught off guard by her sudden vulnerability. "My name is Jessica, and I'm here to share a story not just my own, but of many families in Maplewood." She felt a rush of warmth wash over her as she glanced at her friends seated in the front row, all nodding encouragingly. It was easy to forget her doubts when she focused on their faces, filled with support. "We're all facing a crisis, one that burdens our families in silence. My son Ethan is just one of many." The room fell silent, anticipation hanging heavy in the air like fog. Jessica focused on the story she had rehearsed in her mind. "Ethan needs medication, life-saving medication, and every month that costs me $500. That's money I don't have." Her voice began to shake, but she pressed on. "I know I'm not the only one struggling. We hide it buoyed by our pride, scared of stigma. But I'm here to say that we can't hide anymore." As she shared snippets of her journey, tears shimmered in her eyes, but she held them back with fierce determination. Some of us go without food to ensure our children get the help they need. Some of us drown in debt, all while pretending we're fine. The audience shifted again, a murmur rippling through the crowd. Then, just as she felt the fear creeping back, she remembered Marcus's words about the patient assistance programs. There are resources available, ones that could lighten the burden on families like mine. And it's time we leverage them. She caught a glimpse of an older woman in the second row. Her brow was furrowed in thought. What if we stood together? Jessica urged, a warmth filling her spirit. What if we brought our stories into the open? We could create a community of support and advocacy and fight for change, real change that could help us access the medications our loved ones need. Her voice rose, full of fervor. We can't just accept these costs as our reality. Together, we can make our needs known. We can push for better policies, better programs, and accountability. She saw heads nodding, the flicker of hope sparking in her neighbor's eyes, igniting a yearning. Just then, a young man in the back stood, his voice breaking through the hushed crowd. I'm a single dad, and I've just faced a similar situation. My daughter's insulin costs are crippling. We need all the help we can get. That moment spread like wildfire. Others began standing, sharing their own burdens. The stories poured forward, tales of hardship, struggles, and silent fights. Jessica felt the energy shift, powerful and electric, as more voices joined together. As the meeting came to a close, Jessica realized she'd unearthed something invaluable. Not just hope, but a collective strength, a community ready to push back against a system that had kept them quiet for too long. Suddenly, she was approached by Marcus. I was impressed by what you shared tonight, he said, an earnest look in his eyes. If you're open to it, I'd love to discuss how I can help facilitate these programs and ensure more families receive what they need. Her breath caught in her throat. Could this be the moment she'd been desperately seeking? With heart racing, she nodded, excitement battling against the gravity of what lay ahead. What kind of doors would this open for her and for others facing similar struggles? The journey was just beginning, and as she stood there, a fire ignited inside her, one that would challenge the very fabric of inequality. But could she navigate this newfound path, or would the challenges prove too great? Jessica left the stage that night feeling both exhilarated and terrified. The applause from the audience rang in her ears like a distant drumbeat, a rhythm that echoed her racing heart. She stepped into the dimly lit hallway, trying to shake off the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Marcus stood waiting, leaning against the wall, arms crossed confidently. The flickering overhead lights cast shadows on his sharp features, and for a moment, a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. What did he really want? Thank you, Jessica, he said, his eyes bright. You were amazing out there. The way you spoke, it really struck a chord with so many. She forced a grateful smile, her mind still racing with the fear of what this new journey would entail. It felt right to share, but I don't know what happens next, she confessed, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Marcus straightened, his demeanor shifting to one of determination. That's why I'm here. We need to channel this energy into something sustainable. He paused, gauging her reaction. I want to help you start an advocacy group. Something that can connect families like yours to resources and support. Hope surged in her chest, but she hesitated. But how do we even begin? I'm just one person struggling to make ends meet. I don't have the skills for this. You'll find we're not just one person. You already proved that tonight. It's all about building momentum. You have stories and faces now backing you. Families like yours are ready to fight, he replied, his voice filled with conviction. Jessica felt a warmth in his words, but reality pressed in. I don't even know how to run a group or what we would need to do first. Let us start small, he suggested. We build a social media presence. You get families to share their stories online and use a common hashtag. We can have meetings, let us get those voices heard beyond this town. I can help provide resources, whether it's setting up a website or getting the word out. The thought of taking it online both excited and terrified her. Will people really share their stories? It's such a personal thing, revealing that kind of struggle. I think you'll be surprised at how many people want to share. So many are waiting for a reason to connect and stand up for their needs. He leaned closer. This is about finding a way to build community. The more voices we have, the stronger we become. Jessica inhaled deeply, courage sparking within her. Just as she had felt on stage, her vulnerability masked a powerful force. Maybe if we combine our stories, We could reach out to local businesses or healthcare providers. Her voice trailed off as ideas started to swirl. Yes, and we'll push for changes in our local healthcare policies. We could approach local news stories, create awareness. Marcus added, his enthusiasm contagious. Just then, a woman called out from the hallway, gripping a flyer. Jessica, can I talk to you? I need to share my story. Jessica froze for a second. Here was a sign. This was going to be bigger than she had imagined. Marcus smiled, and for the first time that evening, her doubt began to dim like a dying light. As conversations buzzed around her and stories began to unfold in snippets, she realized this was the beginning of something significant. Excitement crackled in the air. It seemed like every moment pushed her closer to a change long overdue. Yet as she looked at the strangers coming forward, she couldn't shake the thought. Was she ready for this responsibility? As the voices grew louder, she took a breath, ready to embrace the chaos of hope, doubt squirming in the back of her mind. Would they be able to rally together to truly make a difference? Or would it all come crashing down under the weight of their fears? The following days were a whirlwind for Jessica. Every morning, she woke up feeling a mix of purpose and dread. She poured coffee into her favorite mug, one with a chipped edge that her son had used to create his very first clay masterpiece. Each sip reminded her of why she had to do this. Marcus had been an incredible source of support. They met daily, plotting their course. He set up a simple social media page and encouraged Jessica to post about her own experience. It felt strange, unnerving even, but the night she shared her story, everything changed. Notifications chimed on her phone relentlessly. Comments flooded in, each one sprinkled with gratitude and solidarity. Thank you for sharing. I thought I was alone. How can I help? The overwhelming affection washed over her, making her smile and tear up all at once. Look at this engagement, Marcus exclaimed, scanning the responses with a grin. They're ready to share their stories. Even still, doubt nipped at Jessica's heels. What if they expect too much from me? I never wanted to be a leader of any kind. She slouched in her seat, her initial excitement dimming slightly. Marcus saw the shift. You're not alone. You'll never be alone in this. Look at these comments. Look how they see you. He pointed at one particular message. This one from Karen? She's a nurse who wants to help us connect with healthcare providers. She rested her chin on her hand, absorbing the possibilities. The thought of uniting families, of creating a powerful voice, felt intoxicating. It was exactly why she'd shared her story. Yet, a knot tightened in her stomach. What if we let them down? What if I'm not good enough to guide this? What matters is your heart, Jessica. They're waiting for you to be honest, to be real. That's how you connect. Stories change lives. His eyebrow arched encouragingly, pushing her to push past her jitters. As they mapped out their next steps, more people continued to reach out. Jessica met with small groups in her living room, each gathering filled with laughter, tears, and a shared mission. The makeshift meetings turned into something close to a family. Yet, the deeper they delved into shared struggles, the heavier the load felt. Within every heartfelt tale was a bittersweet truth. Their stories held immense pain. Each time Jessica listened, it reminded her of her own battles. Parents fighting for care, kids struggling to access medication, people out of work while medical bills piled high. Did you hear about Karen's son? One mother shared, her voice trembling with emotion. He needs a medication that costs $500 a month. Jessica's heart sank. It was a staggering figure, an impossible hurdle. How could she help them? What could they do together against such a giant? After each meeting, she lay awake, playing conversations in her mind. The faces of the families they gathered haunted her with their struggles. They weren't just stories, they were real lives. They needed someone to champion them. In moments like these, she longed for a breakthrough, an answer, a new direction. Perhaps that's when the call came. The voice on the other line was steady, with an air of confidence that made her heart race. Hello, Jessica. This is Lydia from that healthcare company. I heard you're starting an advocacy group. I think we might be able to help. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. Hope flickered dangerously close to the edge of desperation. Really? How? Lydia paused, the weight of her words heavy. There's something you need to know. What did that mean? Jessica's mind raced, both anxious and eager, questioning where this path might lead. Maybe this was the moment they had been waiting for, the turn they needed to make a real impact. Could this be the breakthrough to change everything? Jessica held her breath as Lydia continued. We're launching a new initiative aimed at addressing medication affordability. We believe your group could play a crucial role in shaping this project. Would you be interested in collaborating? A wild mix of emotions surged within Jessica. Collaboration? With a healthcare company? Her heart raced at the prospect, but doubt remained. I appreciate the offer, but what exactly do you need from us? We're just a small support group. We don't have any power, she said softly, almost to herself. Lydia's voice was reassuring. You have the power of the people's stories. Many companies overlook the human aspect in healthcare. Your group has real experiences that matter. By sharing your members' stories, like Karen's, we can tailor our program to meet real needs. Every word resonated deeply with Jessica. She could feel her resolve growing. This was more than just a spark of hope. It felt like a life raft tossed into turbulent waters. I can't promise we have all the answers, but we're committed to making a difference, Jessica replied, her voice steadier. Then let us talk. Can we meet in person? Lydia asked. After hanging up, Jessica's heart thumped with excitement and anxiety. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the wall plastered with photographs of her son. His smiling face pushed her towards action. This could be the moment. No, it had to be. The following days swept by in a flurry of anticipation. She spent hours preparing, drafting notes about each person she had met, their stories echoing in her mind. Each note turned into a lifeline, a connection that needed to be made. The morning of the meeting arrived. Jessica dressed carefully, wanting to feel confident. She slipped on her favorite blue blouse, feeling the soft fabric against her skin, a reminder of the power of small comforts. As she walked into the modern office, the air buzzed with an energy that made her heart race. Lydia greeted her with a warm smile, and they quickly sat down. The conference room felt formal and structured, a stark contrast to the warmth of her previous group meetings. Jessica found herself sharing stories, her voice growing stronger with each tale. Karen's struggle with her son's medication, the financial burdens families carried, and the late-night worries of parents made their way into the conversation. She poured her heart into every word. Lydia listened intently, her expressions shifting with each heavy revelation. Jessica, this is exactly what we need. Real stories drive real change. I see a partnership that can transform lives, she finally said after nearly an hour. For the first time, Jessica felt seen. The flicker of hope she held began to blaze brighter. But then the reality of the venture hit her like a wave. What if our voices aren't loud enough? What if policymakers ignore us? She asked, the weight of responsibility creeping in again. Lydia leaned in, her gaze steady. It's not just about policymakers. It's about building a community. We'll strategize together, mobilize support. You're not just helping your group. You're becoming a beacon for countless others. The truth struck Jessica deep. This wasn't just about getting medications for people. It was about hope, about validation, about changing the narrative surrounding healthcare. As they wrapped up the meeting, Jessica felt a thrilling mix of empowerment and anxiety. They discussed timelines and the next steps, and she left with a renewed sense of purpose. But doubts still lingered. Was she truly ready for this? That night, she gathered with her support group as planned. The familiar faces brought her comfort. She told them what had happened, watching their faces light up with excitement. They brainstormed ideas, the conversation flowing rapidly. But among the exhilaration, Jessica could feel a knot in her stomach. What if we try and fail? The question slipped out before she could stop it. The room went silent, uncertainty hanging heavy in the air. Suddenly, Marcus spoke up, a determined look on his face. Even if we fail, we'll fail together, and that means something. We're stronger united. Jessica felt a swell of hope, yet the weight of their mission loomed large. What if this was just the beginning of a battle for justice in healthcare? Could they overcome the giants standing in their way? As their voices rang loud with conviction, Jessica held on tightly to the belief that they were ready. She just hoped the world was, too. But then, a knock on the door interrupted their gathering. It was a courier, standing there with an envelope addressed to Jessica. Her heart raced. What could it be? What if this was the moment that would change everything again? Jessica's fingers trembled as she reached for the envelope. The weight of it felt heavier than the paper suggested, laden with the promise of potential or the burden of disappointment. She tore it open, her eyes scanning the contents with urgency. Inside, She found a letter from an advocacy organization she had contacted months earlier. They were interested in partnering with her group, offering resources, legal support, and a chance to amplify their voices. But the kicker was the invitation to participate in a public forum about medication pricing, a chance to stand on a stage and share her story alongside other advocates from across the country. The room erupted into murmurs, excitement mixing with anxiety. "What do you think?" Marcus asked, leaning closer. The faces around her were a blend of worry and hope. "It could give us a platform," Jessica said slowly, her mind racing. "But are we ready for that kind of exposure?" "Jessica," Marcus interjected, his tone firm yet encouraging. "This is what we've worked for. We have stories that need to be heard. Don't let fear hold us back." He was right. It felt like they were on the edge, looking down into an uncertain future with only the stories they had gathered to keep them from falling. The thought of speaking publicly terrified her, but the deeper fear came from the fleeting chance to impact real change being wasted. "I need to think about it," she finally responded, her heart in turmoil. Perhaps this was her chance, but with it came the risk of vulnerability. Would they accept her? Would the world care? The night grew long as they debated the pros and cons. Laughter and hope flickered in the discussions, but uncertainty loomed. Jessica felt torn between the excitement of possibility and the fear of exposure. The following morning, she prepared breakfast in a daze, her mind replaying the previous night's conversation. Each cereal box and fruit seemed to echo the choices she faced. Her phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from Lydia. "I'm excited to support you. Have you had any thoughts about the forum?" Jessica felt the flutter of hope again. What if she said yes? What if she laid everything on the line? The uncertainty of healthcare struggles was often hidden. It was time to bring it into the light. With a deep breath, she typed back, "I'm interested. Let us discuss how we can prepare." Later that afternoon, she met Lydia at a coffee shop buzzing with life. They found a quieter corner, the warm aroma of roasted coffee surrounding them. "I believe this is a pivotal moment for you," Lydia said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Sharing your story has the power to evoke empathy and drive change." Jessica hesitated for a moment, thoughts swirling in her mind like a chaotic storm. What if I stumble? What if they don't care? What if I share something too personal? What if Jessica? Lydia interrupted gently, "Your story matters. Everyone in that room will be there because they want to understand. Focus on the passion behind your words, and they will connect." Suddenly, the weight of the world felt a little lighter. Maybe this was not just her battle, but a collective fight for families struggling to cope with healthcare costs, the very reason she had started this journey. That night, she gathered with her support group again. As the conversation swirled around the forum, Jessica shared her decision, nerves dancing in her chest. But the response was instantaneous. They erupted into spontaneous applause, their joy washing over her like a warm tide. "I'll be doing this for all of us," Jessica declared, her voice shaky but resolute. "We can't let fear dictate our future. We have to show the world what's really happening." As they brainstormed how to craft and present their stories, the room felt electric. Yet underneath the excitement, Jessica could feel the anxiety creeping back. And then, as they were about to wrap up, a thought hit her. What if we use social media to gather even more stories before the forum? We could drive home the message even stronger, show that we're not alone in this. Cheers erupted at her idea, fueling her growing confidence. But amidst all the anticipation, one nagging question tugged at her heart. Were they truly ready for the spotlight that would expose their deepest struggles? The night ended on a high note, but Jessica lay awake, running through every detail. With hope fueling her resolve, she looked up at the ceiling, questioning if she had the strength for what lay ahead. Those doubts lingered, but now she felt a flicker of determination that she wouldn't let it dim. What would happen when they finally stood in front of those who held the keys to change? Would their stories make a difference, or would her voice slip away into the noise? Jessica's heart raced as the day of the forum approached. Each morning brought a mix of adrenaline and dread, the weight of anticipation pressing against her chest like an unwelcome friend. She could hardly focus on her daily tasks. Every interaction seemed to circle back to that stage, the bright lights, and the people listening, waiting for her to pour out her truths. "Do you think I'll remember everything?" she asked Marcus one night as they practiced in front of a mirror. The reflection showed her rehearsed smile, trembling slightly. What if I forget? What if I lose my words? Marcus shook his head with warmth in his eyes. You won't forget. This is your story. It's a part of you, and you've lived it every day. Just speak from your heart. Easier said than done. As the forum approached, Jessica found herself spending late nights perfecting her speech, pacing in her living room, her mind juggling the personal pain of her story and the professional implications of sharing it publicly. The night before the forum, a wave of anxiety washed over her. She and Lydia sat in the same coffee shop where they had first talked about the opportunity. The laughter of patrons created a backdrop that should have brought comfort, but instead, the noise felt suffocating. Jessica, Lydia said, leaning in, remember why we're doing this. It's not just about you. It's for everyone who feels trapped by prescription costs. But as much as Jessica wanted to believe that, insecurity ebbed like the tide. What if everything I say falls flat? What if no one cares? Lydia's gaze softened. They will care. Trust me. Your story is the bridge. It connects lives, shines light on struggles that too many are silent about. You are not alone, and you should never feel alone in this fight. Her words pierced through Jessica's doubts. The room pulsed with stories held by walls, stories that begged to be shared, whispered and finally shouted from the rooftops. The next morning she woke up to the sun streaming through the window, illuminating the dim corners of her life. Despite the stillness around, her heart pounded with a frenzied rhythm. Each beat felt like a drum, her call to arms. Every encounter with the past had readied her for this moment, and suddenly she felt an electric spark of purpose. As she stood backstage waiting for her turn, Jessica glanced at the audience. Faces were a tapestry of hope, anger, and pain, all drawn together by a common thread, just like hers. She gripped the podium, the cool wood grounding her. When her name was announced, she took a deep breath and stepped forward, feeling time slow as she approached the mic. Memories surged: the sleepless nights, the empty bank account, the tears shed in silence. She could almost hear the echo of her daughter's laughter, the reason she was fighting. I'm here because the struggle is real, she started, her voice trembling but firm. I'm a single mother, and I've had to choose between my daughter's health and paying the rent. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Slowly, she unfolded her story, layer by layer, inviting them into her life, the highs and lows, the countless times she felt trapped under the burden of bills that threatened her child's future. The words flowed easier than she expected, the warmth of empathy wrapping around her. When she finished, silence followed, a brief moment hanging thick in the air before the applause erupted like a storm. They were not just acknowledging her, they were standing in solidarity. As the adrenaline flooded her system, she realized this was just the beginning. The spark ignited a fire that would demand a blaze. She felt supported, energized more than ever. She knew they could make change happen together. After the forum ended, she stepped off stage, nerves still on high alert but exhilarated. You did it. Lydia beamed, pulling her into a hug. Yet, even this triumph nestled deep inside her was overshadowed by looming questions. Was this going to be enough? What next? How would they turn this momentum into lasting impact? As Jessica navigated through a sea of kind strangers, her heart beat with a new urgency. She wanted to capture this moment, to enshrine it not just in her own life, but in the lives of everyone she encountered. The echo of her voice still rang in her ears, but the road ahead was long and winding, filled with challenges yet unanswered. What would the next steps entail, and could they truly shift the gears of a system that seemed immovable? Jessica found herself on the precipice of something bigger than herself, her journey just beginning. The fluorescent lights of the lobby buzzed overhead as Jessica stepped out of the forum. The energy still crackled in the air, blending applause with the chatter of excited conversations. She felt like she had walked through fire and emerged, not entirely unscathed, but utterly transformed. Could we really change something? She wondered as she scanned the crowd. Their faces, touched with emotion, mirrored hers, each person holding a story just waiting to be shared. Yet, amidst the thrill of connection, an icy thread of doubt wove through her heart. What could one voice do against the overpowering machinery of the healthcare system? Hey, Earth to Jessica. Lydia's cheerful voice broke her reverie. You had them hanging on every word. That was incredible. Jessica managed a smile, but felt the heaviness of questions weighing her down. Thanks, but was it enough? Lydia's confidence was unwavering. It was more than enough. You struck a chord. You made them feel what you've been through. Just then, a familiar face approached Marcus. He had been a listening ear throughout this journey, always encouraging her to push through. Now, he wore a proud grin, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. That was amazing. Seriously, you've got people buzzing out here. Yeah, but now what? Jessica replied, her voice almost breaking. What happens when the adrenaline fades? This was just one day. What you did today matters, he insisted. People want to hear your journey, the struggles, and they want to act. Use this moment. Build on it. Jessica felt the weight of his words. Building on it. What would that even look like? She envisioned community meetings, advocacy groups, passionate letters sent to elected officials. But where to start? As the crowd began to disperse, Lydia nudged Jessica gently. How about we grab some dinner? You need to celebrate this, not question it. Jessica hesitated, glancing back at the stage she had just left. What was a simple dinner in the midst of all this chaos? But then she remembered the warmth in the room, the outpour of support. All right, let us go. There's a lot to talk about. Later, seated in a cozy diner, the aroma of coffee and comfort food filled the air. A sense of normalcy wrapped around them, breaking through the tension that had clenched Jessica's heart for so long. So, I'm thinking we need to get organized, she declared, as they shared a plate of fries. Create a social media group. Start a movement. Lydia's eyes lit up. Yes. What about a hashtag? Something catchy. Maybe care without cost? Jessica suggested, feeling the idea gain momentum. Yes. I love it. We can rally people around that. Provide resources, share stories. We can amplify voices like yours, give others a platform. Lydia leaned in closer, brimming with excitement. Jessica's heart swelled. Together, we can unite voices. It can't just be me anymore. It has to be a chorus. And just as they brainstormed, the diner door swung open. A middle-aged man stood at the entrance, the shadows of worry etched across his face. He hesitated for a moment, then walked over, drawn by their animated discussion. I couldn't help but overhear. Are you talking about the costs of medications? The moment hung in the air, charged with the potential of new stories ready to unfold. Jessica felt her heart race again, but it was different this time, filled with purpose, fueled by shared urgency. Yeah, she replied, her voice steady. We are. What is your story? As he began to share his struggles, Jessica knew this was the spark she needed. More than just raising awareness, they were creating a platform for others to feel seen and heard. But what might this lead to? Could this conversation change everything for the man before her? The questions hung in the air as the night unfolded, new possibilities blossoming in the wake of her voice. What stories awaited to be told, and could they together incite a wave of healing? The diner buzzed with the background sounds of clinking cutlery and low conversations, but to Jessica, the world faded away. All she could focus on was the man across from her, his voice a mix of vulnerability and frustration. My daughter needs medication, $500 a month, and we barely scrape by. He rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture of defeat. I feel like I'm drowning. Jessica leaned in. That's way too much. No one should have to choose between food and medicine. Her heart ached for him. She could feel a connection forming between not just their shared struggles, but also their shared hope. Exactly, he exclaimed, his eyes widening. I've tried contacting the pharmaceutical companies, looking for programs that could help. Nothing. It's like talking to a wall. There was a fire in his voice that fanned the flame inside Jessica. What is your daughter's name? She asked gently. Emily, he said, his voice softening at the mention of her name. A thought struck Jessica. What if we share your story? If we rally more people around this, builders of care without cost, we might get some attention, and not just on social media. We need to reach the right people. The man shrugged, uncertainty clouding his eyes. I don't know if anyone would listen. I'm just a regular guy. Jessica reached out, placing a hand on his. You are not just a regular guy. You are a father fighting for his child. Your story matters. Look at how many of us are here tonight, connecting over these same issues. We can raise awareness, create a movement. A flicker of hope crossed his face. You think we could really make a difference? I do, she said firmly, feeling a surge of determination. She turned to Lydia, who was already nodding with enthusiasm. We can start small. Share your story, add it to our campaign. It's not just about raising money. It's about sharing experiences. As they discussed potential steps, Jessica noticed a younger couple seated nearby, their heads bent together, listening intently. She could sense the urgency in their whispers, the way they exchanged glances filled with shared understanding. Maybe they had a story too. Let us invite them over, Lydia suggested, and Jessica felt excitement bubble within her. Hey, Jessica called out, waving the couple over. We're talking about when they approached. The woman's eyes were red, hinting at sleepless nights. Are you talking about medication costs? She blurted out, desperation lacing her voice. Jessica nodded, heart racing. We are. What is your story? And just like that, the table erupted into a melting pot of stories. The name exchanged grew longer, a tangled web of pain and resilience. A mother who lost her job, another finding herself trapped in the endless bureaucracy of healthcare. Each tale echoed a familiar struggle of battles fought in silence. They were wound tightly together now, a group drawn by shared experiences and the collective ache of a broken system. Fueled by their stories, Jessica felt a spark of something electric, a sense of inevitability. We can schedule a meeting, start planning. People can rally, write letters, organize protests. The thought was daunting, yet thrilling. These voices weren't just stories anymore. They were potential catalysts. But as ideas flowed, so did the anxiety clawing at her. What if they failed? What if it was all for nothing? A wave of self-doubt threatened, but it was drowned out by the stories surrounding the table. They needed this. In the thick of the conversation, the familiar scent of coffee brewed nearby drew her attention. Life still carried on outside this bubble, unaware of the change being born right there. Let us do this, Lydia said, her fists clenched in determination. Let us take our stories into the world. We're going to raise our voices. Jessica's heart swelled. But just as the energy peaked, the diner doors swung open again. An elderly woman stepped inside. Her presence felt powerful, she exuded calm and wisdom. But Jessica couldn't read the expression on her face. What news would this newcomer bring? Would she add fuel to their fire or somehow shift the direction? Jessica's pulse quickened with anticipation. This was only the beginning. The air was thick with both anxiety and hopeful anticipation as Jessica stood at the front of the community center. It was a week since the forum, and today was the day the group had agreed to organize their first official meeting under the banner of Care Without Cost. As the members trickled in, she felt the weight of her mission settle heavily on her shoulders. She could see the anxiety etched on their faces, but she also recognized the flickers of determination in their eyes, each person driven by their own story, each one a thread woven into this collective tapestry of need. Thank you all for being here, she began, her voice a touch shaky. I know it's scary to put ourselves out there, to share our stories, but we have to. We owe it to ourselves and to our loved ones. Just as she spoke, she caught sight of the elderly woman from the diner who had seemed so powerful a week ago. Her name was Ruth, and Jessica had invited her to share her knowledge about community advocacy. Ruth stood quietly in the corner, her warm smile already reassuring. The presence of her wisdom gave Jessica courage. Ruth took a step forward, the room quieting as she began to speak. What you're afraid of now, the doubt, the uncertainty, it's all part of the struggle. I'm here to assure you, every voice matters. You are starting a wildfire of change, one that can't be ignored. Jessica's heart raced. Those words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, and she sensed nods of agreement from her neighbors. The solidarity grew palpable. They were in this together. She made eye contact with Marcus, who stood near the door giving her a thumbs up, signaling that she was doing great. Taking a deep breath, she continued. Today, we're setting our plan in motion. Together, we will gather our stories, share them online, reach out to local leaders, and challenge the healthcare system to hear the very people they serve. Excitement buzzed through the air. Jessica spiraled into brainstorming ideas. She urged everyone to write down their stories, to share personal anecdotes, and to think of strategies to amplify their voices. As they organized small groups, the energy in the room shifted. The sound of pens scratching paper, eager minds connecting each moment felt like they were weaving their urgency into a beautiful quilt of purpose. Still, Jessica couldn't shake her self-doubt. What if this didn't work? What if they fell short? Perhaps sensing her uncertainty, Ruth approached her after the small groups disbanded. You're doing wonderfully, dear. This is just the beginning. Remember, every change starts small. Jessica met her eyes, a flicker of gratitude igniting her spirit. I just don't want to fail them, she admitted quietly. Failure is part of progress. Ruth reassured her, her tone filled with wisdom. Embrace the bumps along the way. They are stepping stones to growth. Encouraged by Ruth's words, Jessica rallied the room again. Let us share what we've come up with. We need to prepare for our next steps. Reach out to local media, engage local businesses. Let us promote care without cost so it resonates far and wide. There is power in unity. With enough voices, we can't be ignored. And just like that, hope surged through her veins. With every story shared, every supportive nod from their small assembly, they were turning the tide. A sea of voices began to rise, a grounded call to action mixed with passionate hearts ready to make change. Weeks turned into months, and their movement gained steam, fueled by relentless determination. Cracks began to form in the long-held silence around medication costs in their community. With every social media post, they garnered attention, and surprise articles in local papers brought in more families willing to share their truths. Then came the day when Jessica stood before local lawmakers for a public hearing, her heart thundering with every word as she recounted her journey and the many others who would stand behind her if given the chance. Her voice became a beacon. Standing in the spotlight, she shouted, "We demand access to affordable medication, so no family has to choose between food on their table and the medicine that keeps loved ones alive. Together, we are not just a group, we are a movement. We're here, and we will be heard." The applause was thunderous, echoing through the hall as others in support stood with her, giving her the strength she needed. In the months following, the healthcare policy discussions shifted. Legislators on both sides began to listen, facing the voices that were once hidden behind the shadows of shame. Jessica found herself at the forefront of advocacy, collaborating with organizations and speaking at events, each time inspiring more to come forth. She knew there would be struggles ahead, there always were, but with her community beside her and the strength they drew from one another, she felt invincible. They were not just fighting for the present, but carving a brighter future for generations to come. As she looked out at the sea of faces, tears of joy glistening in her eyes, she realized she had not only transformed her own life, but had helped others find their voices too. Through collective strength, they were changing lives one story at a time. And that fire, lit by the brave heart of a single mom, would only continue to grow. Now is your moment to be a part of this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. You need to show your support. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. You matter. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread the word. Together, we can create change.